You believe that marriage is love, protection, and stability. But what if I told you that, in reality, it was designed to erase who you are? That every smile, every sacrifice, every gesture of being a good husband is, in fact, a silent trap? Today, I will reveal the truth that society does not want you to know. How modern marriage exploits men, and why you need to understand this before it is too late. Prepare to see marriage from an angle that no one has ever dared to show. If topics such as psychology, philosophy, and the darkness of the human soul interest you, subscribe to the channel now. Marriage, for many men, begins as the promise of eternal love, happiness, and security. He believes he has found his other half, someone who will fill his voids and give meaning to his existence. But beneath the surface, there is a silent dynamic that begins to shape him slowly. Every gesture of male dedication, every effort to please, becomes a piece of an invisible mechanism. He does not realize that, little by little, he is being conditioned to sacrifice his autonomy. At first, everything is magical. Glances, touches, and smiles create a sense of fulfillment. He feels that he finally belongs to something greater than himself, that he has found his purpose in protecting and loving. But this perception is only illusory, a curtain that hides an ancestral structure of behavior and conditioning. Modern marriage works like a silent script, where the man is guided to give more and more without realizing it. Society reinforces this dynamic subtly but powerfully. Men who sacrifice themselves are exalted, called heroes or virtuous, while those who question the structure are labeled immature or selfish. This narrative creates a psychological trap, the belief that giving yourself completely is noble, while any claim of autonomy is seen as a moral failure. Thus, the man begins to confuse exploitation with honor. Male transformation is gradual and silent. Friends disappear, hobbies are seen as childish, and even money, which was once his, becomes shared under her control. He does not notice how much he is being molded to exist only within the relationship. Outside of it, his identity dissolves. It is a Machiavellian process because it does not involve aggression, only slow and almost invisible conditioning. The illusion of love works as a field of emotional conditioning. At first, sex, attention, and shared interest reinforce the sense of reciprocity. But this phase is only the instinctual seduction phase, designed to consolidate the bond. Once commitment is achieved, affection and care become scarce resources, used as rewards to shape behavior. The man does not notice when he stopped being desired and began to be evaluated. The man believes that his value is measured by giving, by his ability to support and protect, that these virtues are transformed into chains. He internalizes that resisting is selfish, that complaining is a lack of character, that his own freedom must be sacrificed for the well-being of the family. This silent programming creates an emotional prison where obedience is rewarded, but identity is lost. Marriage often destroys the creative solitude of a man. Jung taught that individuation and fulfillment come from the ability to be alone, to connect with oneself. But the structure of modern marriage demands constant adaptation, sacrificing freedom and personal growth. Little by little, he stops being who he is to become what she needs. And this transformation occurs without shouting or violence, only in small daily adjustments. The cycle of domination is reinforced by social conditioning. Phrases such as happy wife, happy life lead the man to believe that his own well-being must always come second. He learns that discomfort is selfish and that any claim is morally wrong. Thus, the relationship ceases to be a space of partnership and becomes a structure where his identity is subordinate. The man's constant giving is not appreciated, it is expected. The more he sacrifices, the less recognition he receives. Unconscious female emotional dependence prefers strength, independence, and scarcity. Men who bend are seen as predictable, easily controlled, and, therefore, uninteresting. Marriage exploits this dynamic. It rewards the initial effort but keeps the man emotionally submissive. The love he receives is conditional. While he produces, serves, and protects, he is accepted. When he fails, he becomes dispensable. This creates a continuous tension between giving and being valued. He believes he's being loved, but in reality, he's functional to the structure of the relationship. Every step toward complete giving increases emotional dependence and reduces personal freedom. The cycle of disillusionment is inevitable. At first, the relationship seems balanced, but as giving increases, appreciation decreases. The spontaneity of the beginning is replaced by obligations and expectations. Affection and attention become conditioned rewards. The man learns that he must negotiate his value, but the equation is never fair. Society celebrates male submission while demonizing any resistance. Friends, family, and institutions reinforce that sacrificing is noble and questioning is selfish. Thus, external pressure validates emotional exploitation, making it difficult to recognize that one is being manipulated. The man conforms, believing that fulfilling the assigned role is the essence of virtue. Conditioning is ancestral. Myths, fairy tales, and fables have always portrayed the man as protector and provider, and the woman as princess and reward. Modern marriage only adapts this script to the contemporary context. He sacrifices everything in the name of a love that, in practice, is conditioned on his performance, creating a false sense of security and value. Extreme male giving creates emotional dependence, but not genuine desire. The more he bends, the less fascination he sparks. Biologically, female respect and admiration arise in the presence of strength, autonomy, and scarcity. Men who offer themselves fully become predictable, transparent, and therefore less attractive. Total giving kills the energy that generates fascination. The fatal mistake is placing the woman at the center of his life. He believes that the more he dedicates, the more he will be valued. But female desire grows with admiration, not obedience. The man who is whole, independent, and self-sufficient creates scarcity and mystery. He chooses to be in the relationship out of abundance, not necessity. And at this point, the cycle of exploitation is broken. The awakened man understands that true strength lies in not being dominated. He finds fulfillment within himself, does not need to prove love or value. His presence is magnetic because it does not depend on approval. He offers space, does not demand attention, and this posture creates genuine fascination. The relationship ceases to be a contract and becomes a conscious choice. When a man is whole, he determines the rhythm of the relationship. He does not beg for attention, does not seek approval. He maintains his life, mission, and boundaries. Absence creates presence, silence generates interest. This posture transforms the power dynamic, reversing the game and making the man the reference point, not a functional provider. Male emotional dependence is the key to exploitation. A man who needs external validation enters the cycle of asking, trying, and constant frustration. The more he seeks, the more he disappears in her eyes. Giving does not generate love, only utility. True attraction arises when he lives his life fully, making her presence a bonus, not a necessity. Modern marriage functions as invisible conditioning. It teaches that sacrifice is love, discomfort is maturity, and saying no is a lack of character. This reprogramming creates learned helplessness. The man gives because he has learned that resistance only makes things worse. He becomes a survivor in his own home, functional but emotionally erased. Exploitation also manifests in identity collapse. He loses control over his desires, dreams, and routine. His individuality is diluted into obligations and external expectations. Even when the relationship ends, he remains trapped by financial or emotional responsibilities. Modern marriage leaves deep scars. not only on the heart, but on the male essence itself. The cycle of exploitation is culturally reinforced. Society celebrates men who sacrifice themselves and ignores their own fulfillment. Questioning the dynamic is seen as rebellion or selfishness. Friends, media, and religion repeat the narrative that fading away is noble. External pressure creates silent conformity, preventing him from realizing the emotional trap he is in. Male emotional dependence creates constant vulnerability. He believes his happiness must always come second. The more he gives, the more he disappears. The more predictable he becomes and the less desired he is. Female respect and fascination, unconscious, arise in the presence of strength and scarcity, not unlimited availability. Full giving, however noble it seems, is invisible. The cycle of disillusionment is inevitable when a man measures his value only by what he produces for her. His identity transforms into a social function: provider, protector, crisis solver. He learns to silence pain and dissatisfaction to maintain domestic peace. Constant giving creates an internal void, while externally he is still celebrated. The trap is silent but complete. Conditional love transforms the relationship into a silent contract. It exists as long as he fulfills his role, while serving, protecting, and maintaining stability. If he fails, grows tired, or becomes predictable, love disappears. The relationship is no longer genuine emotional connection, but a functional structure. He is not loved for who he is. He is valued for what he does. Men who ignore this dynamic live a painful illusion. Extreme giving, believing in reciprocity, slowly destroys them. Society reinforces the narrative of honor and virtue, while the relationship consumes his freedom. The trap is double: internal, emotional, and external, social. He believes he loves and is loved, but he is trapped in a silent cycle of exploitation. Modern marriage transforms habits and routines into instruments of emotional control. Every choice, every free hour, every decision is subtly redirected to meet her expectations. Little by little, he loses agency over his own life. The illusion of partnership hides silent domination. He believes he is building a family, but he is being slowly disconnected from himself. The cycle of domination is not the result of conscious malice. It is instinctive and evolutionary. Millennia of female biological programming have shaped strategies to capture protection, resources, and stability. The man is shaped to meet these demands, not as he is, but as she needs him to be. This gradual adaptation transforms freedom into obligation, desire into function. Intimacy becomes a currency of exchange. Sex, affection, and attention are scarce resources, offered as rewards for desired behavior. He learns to measure every gesture, every word, trying to maintain her affection. But as he adjusts, he loses what made him valuable: spontaneity and inner strength. Constant giving silently erodes identity. Socialization reinforces the marriage script. Friends also follow similar patterns, repeating roles of sacrifice and obedience. Men share experiences of lost freedom as something inevitable, creating a collective narrative of resignation. This conformity reinforces the cycle, making the man more vulnerable to dissolving within the relationship without noticing. The illusion of conditional love creates invisible anxiety. He learns to prioritize her happiness, forgetting his own. Every personal discomfort is suppressed, interpreted as selfishness. Domestic peace becomes the compass of his decisions. At the same time, he internalizes that any resistance generates guilt, creating a constant state of emotional self-oppression. The modern man is trained to erase his own voice. Criticism or divergence is interpreted as moral failure. Emotional submission is rewarded with apparent harmony, while any desire for autonomy is suffocated. This pattern creates learned helplessness, a conditioning that transforms resistance into surrender. He becomes functional, but emotionally invisible. Male giving creates an illusion of control. He believes that by maintaining peace and resolving crises, he maintains love. But in reality, his identity is sacrificed for an invisible contract. Love, from this perspective, is not genuine connection, but function. He becomes essential for her stability, but irrelevant as an individual. The cycle perpetuates because the man internalizes traditional values: courage, patience, sacrifice. He does not realize that these virtues are used against him. Honor, which seemed to protect his masculinity, serves as an emotional chain. He believes that yielding is morally correct, while resistance would be selfish. Thus, each noble act brings him closer to his own dissolution. Conditioning is reinforced by cultural stories and myths. Fairy tales and ancestral narratives have always shown the man as savior and the woman as reward. Instinctive psychology adapts these stories to real life. He sacrifices dreams, pleasure, and autonomy, expecting gratitude that never arrives. The fallacy of heroic love slowly consumes his essence. Men who sacrifice too much become predictable and less desirable. Female biology values strength, autonomy, and scarcity. The more he bends, the more he disappears. Fascination is not born from worship or giving, but from wholeness and independence. Modern marriage exploits this unconscious dynamic to consolidate emotional control. The man who does not understand this logic constantly seeks approval and conditional love. He believes that the more he tries, the more he will be valued. But the relationship operates on instinctive principles. Desire and fascination grow in the presence of scarcity, not availability. Complete giving does not generate love, only functional utility. The emotional structure of the relationship transforms happiness into obligation. He learns that his joy comes last. Every sacrifice is justified as love, every personal discomfort as proof of maturity. But this pattern creates psychological and existential exhaustion. The man loses himself in the machinery of meeting others' expectations. Modern marriage conditions the man to measure every action. Every gesture is unconsciously evaluated by her. He internalizes invisible rules, adjusting behavior, routine, and decisions to avoid conflict or rejection. But this adaptation sacrifices spontaneity, authenticity, and pleasure. He becomes functional, but emotionally diminished. Constant giving generates mutual emotional dependence. He learns that any resistance generates guilt, regret, or conflict. Thus, submission is not only functional, but internalized. He believes that domestic peace depends on his abdication. Modern marriage is sustained on this subtle, almost imperceptible emotional manipulation. Conditional love transforms expectation into permanent tension. He must constantly prove value, interest, and dedication. If he fails, affection withdraws. The relationship is not emotional connection, but a silent contract of behavior and reward. He learns that his value depends on obedience, not authenticity. The cycle of emotional exploitation is invisible to him. Friends, media, and culture reinforce the narrative of honor and sacrifice. Questioning is selfishness, resisting is immaturity. Thus, he internalizes submission as virtue, reinforcing his own psychological prison. Total giving is not perceived as exploitation, but as morality. Conditioning is reinforced by female biological instinct. She seeks protection, resources, and stability, shaping the man according to her needs. Gradual male adaptation ensures that he becomes predictable, functional, and emotionally dependent. His freedom is replaced by obligation and routine. Total male giving reduces fascination and desire. The more available he is, the less valued he becomes. Admiration and desire arise in the presence of strength, independence, and scarcity. Men who offer themselves fully become emotionally invisible. Modern marriage exploits this to consolidate control and dependence. The fundamental error is placing the woman at the center of his life. He believes extreme dedication will generate appreciation, but desire grows with admiration, not obedience. Men who are whole, independent, and self-sufficient create emotional scarcity. He chooses to be in the relationship out of abundance, not necessity, reversing the cycle of exploitation. The awakened man understands that true strength is not being dominated. He finds fulfillment in himself and does not need to prove love or value. His presence is magnetic because it does not depend on external approval. He offers presence, does not demand attention, and creates genuine fascination, transforming the relationship into conscious choice, not obligation. When whole, he sets the rhythm of the relationship. He does not beg for attention, does not seek approval. He maintains life, mission, and boundaries. Absence creates presence. Silence generates interest. This posture transforms the power dynamic, reversing the game, making him the reference point and not a functional provider. He lives autonomously and magnetically. Male emotional dependence creates vulnerability and suffering. The more he tries, the more he disappears, the less fascination he generates. Conditional love demands constant performance. He learns to measure gestures and words, sacrificing spontaneity. The relationship becomes function and contract, not genuine connection. Extreme male giving is invisible. He believes he's being loved, but only serves as a functional provider. Identity and desire disappear, while honor and sacrifice are celebrated. Modern marriage conditions emotionally and socially, keeping the man in a cycle of silent and almost imperceptible subordination. The solution is not to hate women or avoid relationships, but to awaken awareness. Understanding the instinctive, social, and psychological dynamic allows regaining autonomy. The man must maintain emotional independence, personal mission, and healthy scarcity. In this way, he transforms relationships into choice, not obligation, and avoids being emotionally exploited. The awakened man understands that love is not dependence, but abundance. He does not need, he chooses. His presence is magnetic, his life is full, and any relationship only makes sense if it amplifies that fullness. By understanding the hidden truth of marriage, he regains freedom, identity, and real value. Conscious choice transforms exploitation into power, submission into respect, and illusion into personal mastery. These two videos in front of you are not here by chance. What if everything you believe about yourself is only a reflection of someone else's gaze? Click now on one of the videos beside you and start breaking that mirror. You will have to risk the click. Which one will you choose?